Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I have a first impressions to do for you on the Microtech Sigil. So this is one of the Microtechs that I have lusted after for a very long time. My buddy Sam has one, and every time he posts a picture of it, I just want it. I got the chance to handle one at California Custom Knife Show. I think it was just this last year, and I really liked what I felt then. It's just a really, really nice knife. It's, I don't know, when I think Microtech, I don't think titanium frame lock. I think OTF. Or if I don't think OTF, I think LUDT. Or if I don't think LUDT, then I think SOCOM Elite. You know, like there's certain knives in their lineup that I think have kind of been like what they're famous for. And I feel like this is a bit of a sleeper. I would be willing to bet there's not that many people who like don't know it exists if they're pretty into knives and familiar with Microtech to a degree. But it's just, I don't know if I'm alone in that, but it's not what I think of when I think Microtech. And I kind of feel like I should. I think this might be my favorite actual Microtech in application that I've ever experienced. And I like Microtechs, so that's kind of saying a lot. So this was loaned to me by my buddy YD Knives. He's going to be linked down below. You'll see his Instagram down there, so give him a follow, check him out. And he's super generous for loaning me this and all of the other loaners that he's currently loaning to me and has loaned to me in the past. Really great guy. So this model, I don't think they've made in a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. If they have, it hasn't been very many of them. This one is from 04 of 2017. So this knife is over 3 years old at this point from when it was manufactured. It looks like it's serial number 653. It's a Sigil Mark 6. So apparently this is the 6th iteration of the knife. It's in LMAX blade steel. And I really like LMAX. Personally, hot take from me, I prefer LMAX to M390. Not because it's a better steel, but because it has a cooler name. Anyways, LMAX is a really good steel in my opinion. I've liked every knife that I've had in LMAX, and I've had good experiences with it. We've got a stone-washed blade here. It's a nice, not super like deep, dark acid wash, but it's acid washed pretty heavily and then stone-washed well. And I like the way that kind of hides the billboarding. I was pretty mean to the billboarding on the SOCOM Elites that I have in my possession at the moment because it's just so in your face. This has more text on it, but it's hidden better. It's not as annoying to me, not even close. So we've got titanium handle scales. These are not, actually they are internally milled. I don't know why I was thinking they weren't. It's not like the deepest pockets I've ever seen, but it's a pretty good internal milling. I doubt I'll be able to show you. I'll try. I don't think that's going to work, but we'll try. Maybe you can see a little bit in there. Anyway, it's internally milled. We've got a titanium backspacer, which is done really well and has an integrated lanyard hole if you're the type of person who decides you need that. And the over travel stop is one of the kind of shining features on this knife to me. It's copper, and I think it looks really cool to have just that one little pop of copper. I'm not a fan of having like full-on copper scales. They're just heavy for no reason, and I don't think they're actually a very good material in terms of what they actually do. I think they can look cool. I like copper as a material aesthetically, but I've never been one to jump onto the craze of like full-on copper builds. That just doesn't do much for me. But I like here that it's the over travel stop, and it's where the pivot sets in, and it's a cool look. I like that. You can see the copper does have a little bit of a patina starting up here. That is not from me. That's the way it came to me. If anything, I feel like I've kind of wiped it a little bit, and it's not as dark as it was before. The pocket clip on this one is... it's fine. It's a milled titanium pocket clip, and it works okay for me. We'll talk more about that. But I was on the Knife Junkie podcast the other night, just the Thursday Night Knives, and a lot of people jump on. It wasn't like my episode. Anyways, I was on it, and there was a guy on there. I forget what his name was. That's embarrassing. But he asked which pocket clip this had, and I had forgotten until I even said that. I'm pretty sure the original sigils, like some of the earlier ones that I saw, had a pocket clip that was like on a hinge, basically. It was kind of spring-loaded, and if you pressed on this side, it would lift the front side up as you put it into your pocket, and then you let go and it clips down, like a chip clip, but for your pocket knife. And I've seen other knives do that. It's kind of few and far between. It's not like this is the only knife I've ever seen that on, but I prefer a standard pocket clip, although this one is not a phenomenal pocket clip as it is, so maybe that other design would have worked better. But you can see all over this knife, it's really designed. The milling on here, aesthetically, I think looks really cool. I don't like it when scales are like overly designed and try to look like super robotic or futuristic, or like it can definitely be taken too far for sure. But I like the amount of milling that's done on here and how it comes through. I think it looks really, really cool. And then the way that this warny sets into the handle as well. This knife closed looks awesome to me. And it also looks awesome open. So I like it when knives look good both ways, open and closed. I think that's a good thing. Plus the amount of edge you get here, the blade to handle ratio. This is a really, really good ratio to me for a folder. It looks like so much blade just came out of that handle every time I open it, and I like that. I believe this is like 4 inches of blade. I'm not a specs guy, so you can verify that online, I'm sure, but it's quite a bit of blade. So we've got titanium frame lock. It does have a stainless steel insert, and actually that's one thing I should touch on as well. Even like the way that the stainless steel insert is set in there, I think looks awesome. And it's using Microtech's proprietary hardware, which I'm not a big fan of in terms of function, but it just looks really, really cool on this knife. I like that you get that little bit of a different material showing through right where the copper also is. It's just done well. It's a good touch, and you've got all this milling happening around it, and it just looks really, really, really finished to me. So titanium frame lock, stainless steel insert, titanium pocket clip, titanium backspacer, Microtech internal use hardware. It's got weight relief inside. That's kind of all we're talking about materials wise here. I don't think I've missed anything. But this knife, it's one of those knives that, like, when you look at it as a whole, you can tell, like I said, the milling on the handle is easy to pick up. The blade shape is, at least to me, it looks appealing, and the swedge is done well. Like, all of the cuts that you can see have been done well here. But it's one of those knives that the closer I get to it and the more I look at it, the more little things I keep finding, and I love that in knives. I think it's so much fun to like get closer to a knife and really start kind of picking apart each of the features and finding new things. Like inside the hole here that you use to middle finger flick it open, it's actually like a stage of mill passes. It's like little tiny shelves progressing down. So instead of like rounding it and crowning it internally or whatever you want to call that, there's actually 1, 2, 3 steps of little like milled out pockets. So it's like layers going down. And I just, when you get close to it, it looks so cool. All of the chamfering around the spine of the blade leading up to this really well done swedge, the grind lines being nice and even, this thing being a good edge bevel in my opinion. The little pocket that they've milled out on the flipper tab itself, come on, focus. It's got just a little bit of milling on there. Like, how much weight are they relieving there? Next to nothing, but it looks cool. And then the internal milling, I don't think I'm going to be able to really show you, but everything about it is like kind of geometric, but it still has these like, I don't know, it still has enough kind of curvature to it that it almost feels like cyborg-esque. Like, it's a little bit organic shape and a lot of like machine shape going into it. It's just really cool. Even, yeah, like the teardrop shaped copper there's a cool blend of curves and angles, and that to me works really, really well. The ergos on this knife for me are excellent. They're really, really good. I like the cutout for the handle here. Come on, focus. The cutout, you've got the perfect space for me to get 2 fingers right here, and then it's a nice flat after it. So it's got a groove that is locking me in better, but it's neutral enough that it's like If I had hands slightly smaller or slightly larger, I think I'd still be fine. I like how much handle there is too, because I've got a little bit back here, but not an obscene amount. And if I do want to choke back, it's a super intuitive place to just put my forward finger in that groove and put the remaining 3 on that flat. Thumb lands right here, and it's very comfortable. Not that I anticipate chopping with this knife, but it's nice that the ergos lend me to be able to go into a different grip and still be comfortable. In reverse grip, it's also very good. One of the gripes that I mentioned about the SOCOM Elite is the stupid glass breaker that I couldn't care less about. In fact, I wish it was gone. I have feelings about it, they're not positive. This, no glass breaker. Hallelujah, Microtech built a knife without a glass breaker. Please do that more. This is a good spot to put my thumb. Is it the best, like most generous flat? No, but it's totally usable. And the ergos otherwise, where my hand lands and how it sits and how there's this little guard here, feels very good in reverse grip. I like that quite a bit. So yeah, hammer grip, total win. Saber grip, total win. Draw cut feels fantastic. Reverse grip, very good. Reverse grip draw cut even, very good. So the ergos on here to me are a total win. I really like it. All the edges are knocked down. Nothing on here feels sharp or hot spotty. Even up here where the lock cut is, I feel like oftentimes on a frame lock, that's where I feel like I get prodded and poked by the frame in a way that I don't want to. You can see it is a little bit of a ledge there, but it's not, it doesn't hurt one bit. In fact, I hardly notice that it's there in hammer or saber grip, which is typically where it'd be like, if that's sharp, that's where it's going to bother me. Let's think. I don't know much else what to say about this knife. I guess the one thing that I have been kind of learning about it, I've carried it, I think, twice now. The one thing that I've been learning about it is the action is a little different than I feel like I expected it to be, maybe. The detent is just lighter than I imagined it would be. It's not so light that I'm like failing to deploy the knife. Ooh, that's close to my thumb. It's just, I don't know, I feel like most frame locks that I feel, and maybe it's because this one is from 2017 and people were less into like the super crisp, like fire hard detents back then, but it has this like rollout where it's not flying out super fast, but it's still, with this much blade and this much weight and with the energy it is getting, it does fly out well with the flipper tab, and it locks up reliably, and it has this kind of like mechanical sensation as it goes through. It's not necessarily super glassy. It's like you can feel mechanism happening. It's weird. It almost feels like it's on gears. So yeah, just a different sensation from the action. Is it my favorite flipper action I've ever felt? No. Like my Arius beats the piss out of this in terms of the sensation of deployment, but it feels different in kind of a fun way. It's not necessarily like bad different. And then, because you've got that hole there, the way I find myself actually opening this pretty much every time is just middle finger flicking it open, because holes are greater than studs, and that's the way I like to open knives. So I love that this, not only does it have a finger hole here, but it works really, really well. For thumb deployment, not so much because of the shape of the hole. Like when I middle finger flick, I'm flicking out this way. It's kind of like up and out. When I'm using a thumb stud or a thumb hole with my thumb, I'm pushing forward, like that way, right? So it's a different angle. And here, you don't really have the option to use that angle. So for the thumb, it really, it's not working so well for me. But middle finger all day long, which is fine with me. I'd rather use my middle finger than my thumb. So, we've talked action, we've talked ergos. Let's talk carry a little bit. Again, this isn't the full review. Stay tuned for more concise thoughts after I've had this in pocket a lot more and done more with it. But the pocket clip is just meh. It doesn't fail as a pocket clip. I've certainly had much worse, but I've also had much better. Like, going in and out of the pocket, I find that it can be a little tricky to get it one-handed. Sometimes I want to like reach over and hold my pocket fabric tight so that it can get in. It's just a little bit to overcome getting through that loop. And then the amount that sticks out of your pocket, I prefer deep carry. That's open. I've said that before, I'll say it again. So there's a little bit that sticks out of your pocket, but it's not crazy. It's like that much knife. It's not that big of a deal. Certainly, again, had worse, but had better. And yeah, the clip, once it's in your pocket, I haven't had any issues with retention. In fact, maybe it's a little extra tight trying to get it out. It can be like a little bit of a snag compared to other knives. So it's just usable. It works, but it's certainly probably one of my least favorite parts of the knife. If there's one thing that I would, like if this was mine and I could do one thing to enhance it, it would probably be make the pocket clip a little bit just more usable for my preferences. So yeah, carry is pretty good. In terms of when it's actually in pocket, it carries very well. The profile of the knife is very good. It's fairly slender, especially for how big this knife actually is, like overall length. I like how slender it is, and that even with it being on the slender end, when I'm holding this knife in hand and using it, it doesn't feel like a skinny little knife. It feels like a full-size knife. So I feel like they've done a good balance of how it goes in pocket versus how much you actually have in your hand when it's out of your pocket. The weight it's a titanium frame lock. I haven't put it on a scale, but as like 4-inch blade titanium frame locks go, I feel like it's totally reasonable. They've made this knife, I've seen it with like brass show scales and stuff. I'm sure that one is not going to be fun to have in pocket, but having this knife in pocket, the weight hasn't bothered me one bit. I would guess, if I were to guesstimate, someone let me know how far off I am. I'm sure somebody actually does know, but maybe it's right around 6 ounces, which for a 4-inch titanium frame lock, I feel like is pretty reasonable. Again, that's not a real scale. That's just me guessing, but it does well for me. I really like it in pocket once it's in. It's getting it in and out that can be a little bit of a snag, and I do wish that it actually like disappeared deep carry style, but that's just me. So overall, I think it's stunning visually. I love the way that this knife looks. Sincerely, I think it looks awesome. I love the way that it performs. I like how much blade you get. I like the deployment methods. I like that it feels a little bit different than other frame locks I've had. Like it just has I don't know. I don't know if every frame lock that Microtech makes feels this way, but it doesn't feel like, I don't know, any other frame lock that I've had before. It just has a different sensation to it and a different feel, and it's like, it's tactile in a fun way, and yeah, it kind of feels like it's running on gears, but meanwhile it's running on bearings. Yeah, those are bearings I'm peeking through right now. Anyway, lockup is solid. There's no blade play in any direction, like literally zero. This is just, it's rock solid, and it's a well-built knife. I like it quite a bit. I hope that Microtech starts making more of these, because I feel like this should be, I don't know. If you ask me right now, which would I rather have, pretend they cost the same or that I'm getting them both for free or whatever it is, which one would I rather have, this or a Sigil? This. Which would I rather have, this or an Ultratech? This. Which would I rather have, this or a Combat Troodon even? This. Like, this is the Microtech. I feel like that's for me, if I'm really being honest. And one of the things that I said about the SOCOM Elite is sometimes it's nice. I'm not always like a 4-inch blade guy. I typically find myself more in the like 3 1/4, 3.5 inch blade being my comfort zone. But with the way that this knife feels in hand, I feel like a lot of why I'm not usually a 4-inch blade guy is because those knives feel a little more cumbersome. And this doesn't feel cumbersome at all to me. This feels really good. I like the way it indexes in my hand. I like that the only jimping on the whole thing is on the spine of the blade. And it's actually a pretty long stretch of jimping. So it's kind of like how on giant mouse knives I love that they set it forward. This jimping just makes it all the way forward. And I'd probably like it the same without any jimping, but I don't dislike this jimping, which is a big strength for me because oftentimes jimping bothers the heck out of me. So I like the way this jimping is done for being jimped there. I like the placement of it. I like the way it just feels in my hand. This knife feels ready to work, and it's nice. It's really, really nice. So those will be my first impressions. There will be plenty more to come once I am ready to do my full review on it, and I'm sure I'll have some more in-depth thoughts by that point. But in the meantime, goodness, I really quite enjoy the Microtech Sigil. It is a super fun knife. It looks so good. And that amount of blade that you get for the size of the handle, I don't know, that's something that tickles me. I really like it when I get a lot of blade out of the handle. It reminds me a lot, frankly, of the Paysan. the Spyderco Paysan, which is the Resenti design, so I assume the Resenti Paysan as well, although if I'm a poor boy, I've only had the Spyderco production version. It had a very similar A, blade shape in a lot of ways, B, the way that it felt when I would middle finger flick it, this reminds me of, and this is different in a number of ways. It's not an integral, there's a lot structurally that's different here, but the sensation I get of it in my hand, it reminds me of that. It's reminiscent, and I like that. I really loved the Paysan. I don't know which one I like more now, this or the Paysan, because they're both fantastic, but it might actually be this one. I don't know. Time will tell. Maybe I'll have a decision on that by the time I do the full review. Anyway, this has been fun. Thank you for checking it out with me. I really like this knife, if you can't tell. I think I've said it plenty of times by now, and I'm excited to keep on experiencing it some more.